everyone. My name is Teddie Wardi. I'm with Insight Venture Partners. Today I wanted to talk to you about something a little bit unconventional, which is around doing M&A as a startup yourself. So basically startups acquiring other startups. And this is not just about something you do on a later stage when you raise that $120 million that PJ from Showpad had done, but something you can do at the Series A stage when you're doing small acqui-hires to build out your team. Before that, just wanted to give you quick introductions and backgrounds. I used to be a CTO and operator, co-founder of a SaaS startup, spent 6 years building that, made all the mistakes you can possibly ever do, but somehow we got acquired by a public tech company. And since then, for the last 5 years, I've been investing in European application layer SaaS companies, such as Showpad, Collibra, Pipedrive, Automile, Bitmovin, and a number of others. And something about Insight, so we are a New York-based global venture and growth equity investor. We've been around for 20 plus years, raised over $18 billion and counting. And our focus is broadly software, which we define mainly as B2B and enterprise software with some B2C thrown in. We invest mainly in the growth stage, so think Series B, Series C, but also do some things earlier as well as some later stage buyouts. And finally, we've been investing in Europe for quite a long time, and some of our success stories that have made it all the way to IPO include Mimecast, Delivery Hero, HelloFresh, and some others. So on this topic, so what are the things, what would you consider? Why would a startup be buying another startup? So the conventional high growth playbook is that the only good growth is organic growth, and acquisitions should happen at the very late stage and be focused on cost cutting and so forth. So we think a little bit differently. If you want to get to $100 million ARR, which is the goal for a lot of people, although the journey doesn't really end there, there are many ways to get there. So acquisitions could be for a number of reasons. First one is just kind of building out your team, so acquiring talent. There's so many teams out there who have great people, but maybe their business hasn't taken off the ground that well. Having them join you instead of shutting down shop can be a great outcome for both parties. And usually you see these things happening on the engineering side. People are acquiring machine learning and AI teams, for example. Another one to think about is geographic expansion. Let's say you want to open that second engineering location. Let's say you want to open that APAC sales location. Acquiring something earlier stage might be a good way of getting there. A third one is product expansion. So let's say you've realized that you're on a good track, but let's say through the competitive pressure or whatever reasons, you really want to have a broader suite that you go to market with. That's a good reason to buy something early and kind of grow it from there instead of always building yourself. And finally, of course, if you can buy ARR a cheaper multiple than your own multiple, it might actually make sense in certain situations. But be careful not to be too opportunistic. So what do these deals actually look like? So in most cases, there's a pretty heavy equity component. So it could be something like, you pay out the existing investors of a business, but you have the founders or the management team of the target roll equity to the combined entity. And that kind of sets the incentives and you get a new co-founder or a team member or multiple of those to your business. And contraindications would include large amounts of venture funding. So those pesky venture investors often feel like they want to get their money back. So if you see an early stage company that's 10 employees and raised $30 million, it might be harder to make a deal work, at least in a way that everyone kind of walks away reasonably happy. And these things are a win for sellers as well. I mean, some of you might be in a situation that you'll be acquired by another startup, and I kind of want to emphasize that these things are win-win. So for the seller, it's about taking some cash off the table, actually participating in a much more meaningful, bigger upside with lower risk. So more upside and lower risk is usually a win for the other party as well. So you might say that you're so focused on core growth, how would you ever manage an acquisition and then integrating that? So I would recommend to focus on minimizing distraction as the number one thing, and then realizing value from day one. So I have a checklist of things that you might want to consider. First one would be office location. So you want to think about something, let's say, in your primary location to begin with, or at least if you're acquiring something that's in a different city or country, think about very simple things like, are there direct flights? Because these might affect how do you make things work. Second one would be management and cultural fit. Is the management team and the employees like a cultural fit to your business? Is there values fit? Do you think they work the same way? You really don't want to distract your business by buying something that might cause chaos and a lot of friction between your teams. Third one would be the sales motion. Is your product something that you can plug and play and have their sales rep sell immediately? Is their product something that plugs to yours? And that's like extremely important to think, because you don't want to be kind of a dual brain company for a very long time. One other thing would be talent pickup. So if you think about your own hiring plan, let's say you need to hire your CMO in the next 6 months, but an acquisition might actually get you a great CMO. That might be a good reason to move forward. On the other hand, if you're doubling up on a lot of talent and management team members, it might be a challenge to make things work and have a bit of a different approach. Final, one of the most important things is product integration. So can you integrate the products to make the offering into a single solution that makes coherent sense? And if you can't, is that still okay? Actually, in many situations, it's okay to have a suite of products, and you can do value capture at the account level. So you might be selling two completely separate products to the same buyer, and that might actually still work quite well. So the perfect world, you want to integrate, but it's not always a necessary thing. So let's take an example case. Some of you might have seen PJ, the CEO of Showpad, on stage a bit earlier today. So they bought a company called LearnCore. And the way they thought about it was that Showpad is a sales enablement platform focusing on content. And they got some pressure on consolidation industry, some comments about analysts, and kind of questions from the customers that it would make great if the product had a training and coaching component. So Showpad went out and found this target, LearnCore, and managed to do acquisition. And the motivation there was around, of course, the product combination. The two products are much more valuable as a combination than they were separately. Situation-wise, they were both in Chicago, good cultural fit. The management team didn't have a lot of overlap, so it was a no-brainer on that front as well. And finally, the talent pickup was really helpful on the tech side. So Showpad had struggled hiring certain types of engineering talent, which LearnCore had, so that worked out very well for both companies. And after some lengthy negotiations, both businesses came out with a great experience and are very excited about building the company forward. So the session is called VCs Pitch Founders. So I of course have to tell you about how Insight can help here. So at Insight we did 50 acquisitions for our portfolio companies just during last year, and we are probably on a run rate of doing the same thing this year. So we've seen a lot of things of different sizes. So what we can do starts from planning. So building a strategic plan for the M&A. What are you looking to buy? Like what directions are you looking for? And then our pretty broad analyst pool can help source those opportunities, look for everywhere in the world, and kind of feed you with a pipeline of M&A opportunities. You can think about this as like an outsourced corp dev team. And then in terms of engaging those opportunities, it's sometimes much easier if it's somebody from Insight who's reaching out to the target, trying to see if there's a deal to be made or if they're even interested in discussions than you as the acquirer going directly. So when you get ahead in the process and you find a target that you want to do a deal with, then of course supporting on deal structure and negotiation is very important. We have so many benchmark of deals, so we can help you pay the right amount and structure things in a way that makes sense. And on the execution side, helping with planning diligence, making sure that you tick all the boxes, and as you're doing it probably for the first time, that you don't make any rookie mistakes and end up buying something that you didn't intend to. Financing is a big component. So, for example, when Showpad wanted to buy LearnCore, there was a big cash component to the deal. So we very flexibly offered additional equity financing to Showpad at the kind of market terms without them having to go out and raise yet another round. So having the equity financing on tap is a big value add for businesses that go about buying a lot of companies. And finally, integration is the most important thing. So we've done a lot of integration work. We've created handbooks. We've kind of gone through all the processes you must think about when you put companies together, because that's really where the rubber hits the road of does the, do you realize those synergies and do you make those visions work? So a few closing notes. So M&A is an acquired skill. So it's good to start early, and it's good to start small. So, starting early means that you might want to do that small acqui-hire of like that 2-person startup, which is like some small piece of technology, and just get it done, and you get the feel of how to run through the process, how to integrate things. Because at some point, as you're a larger company, you might be wanting to buy a company for, let's say, $50 million. So it's good to practice this muscle. And cultural fit, I would say, is the most important thing of all of these elements, and it should never be overlooked. It's almost like, I think Series A startups mostly die for 2 reasons. One is they run out of cash, and the second one that there's founder drama and things fall apart. So if you just gotten through the founder drama bit and crossed the chasm, when you're adding a new management team or a new co-founder of business, you don't want to trigger that drama for yourself again. So just be very careful that you have great kind of fit with the people you'll be working with for the next 5+ years. And final one would be, of course, recommend working with an investor partner who has done it before and has your back, both in terms of financing, but also in terms of just backing a coherent M&A strategy. Thank you.